My name is Brooke Thompson. I am 38 years old, and until that Tuesday morning, I still believed there were some lines a family would never cross. I had just dropped my kids off and stopped for coffee before heading to my first client of the day. I was standing in line, half awake, checking emails, thinking about fabric samples and a dining room install, when my phone lit up with the family group chat for my mother's birthday. I opened it, expecting the usual noise about flowers, cake, and who was bringing what. Instead, I found a message from my father telling me not to come. He said the whole family did not want me there. Then he called me a loser. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, not because I was shocked, but because something inside me finally went quiet. No more excuses. No more pretending they did not mean the things they kept showing me for years. I smiled, typed back one sentence, and asked if he had really chosen money over his own daughter. Then I canceled everything. The private room, the birthday arrangements, the deposit I had paid weeks earlier for the dinner they thought would happen without me. A few people in the chat started laughing. Someone reacted like it was a joke. Someone else added another cruel little comment, just enough to make it clear this was not anger in the moment. This was who they had always been when they thought I would stay small and take it. What none of them understood was that they had not just uninvited me from a birthday dinner. They had handed me the one thing I needed to stop protecting them. Before I tell you what happened next, and why they were not laughing for long, tell me where you are watching from, and what time it is, where you are right now. When I got back to my car, I did not cry. I did not call anyone either. I just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, staring through the windshield at people walking in and out of the coffee shop like the world had not just shifted under my feet. The truth was, that message did not come out of nowhere. It only said out loud what my family had been saying in smaller, cleaner ways for years. My father, Robert Thompson, had spent most of my adult life treating my business like a phase I should have grown out of. I own a small home staging an interior styling company just outside Austin. It is not flashy, but it is real. I built it client by client, house by house, long weekends, late invoices, early mornings, all while raising 2 kids and trying to keep a marriage and a home running. My father never called it a business unless other people were listening. When it was just family, he called it my little project. My older sister Megan worked in luxury real estate, which made her the golden child by default. She sold the kind of image my parents worshipped: designer heels, polished listings, staged smiles, champagne open houses. She knew exactly how to talk to my father, how to agree without sounding weak, how to make ambition look elegant. My younger sister Hannah was easier to love, but harder to trust. She hated conflict so much that she would sit there in silence while I was being carved up in front of her. Then later she would text me something soft and guilty like, "I hope you know I did not agree with that." My mother, Eleanor, always played the peacemaker, but only in ways that protected the people causing the damage. She would tell me not to take things so personally. She would say that was just how Dad was. She would ask me to be the bigger person, which in our family always meant be quieter, be easier, be the one who bends. The real fight had started about a year earlier, when my father decided I should fold my company into one of his real estate ventures and handle interiors for a new upscale development he was backing. On paper, it sounded generous. That was how he sold it to everyone, like he was offering me a seat at the grown-up table. What he really wanted was control. He wanted my taste, my labor, my client instincts, and my name attached to his money. But only if I did things his way. When I told him no, that I wanted to keep my company independent, he looked at me like I had slapped him. After that, the comments got sharper. Megan said I was too emotional to scale a real business. My mother asked why I always had to make things difficult. My father told me pride was expensive for people with smaller incomes. They even took shots at my husband, Michael, because he taught history at a public high school and was not chasing status the way they thought a man should. They acted like I had chosen the wrong life simply because I had chosen one they could not control. That was the part that finally became clear in that parking lot. They did not hate me because I had failed. They hated that I had built a life they did not own. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had already made one decision. I was not going to fight for a place at that table again. Michael was in the kitchen grading papers when I walked in, still in his work clothes, glasses low on his nose, red pen in his hand. He looked up once and knew something was wrong. I showed him the message without saying a word. He read it slowly, then read my reply, then set the phone down on the counter with a calm I did not expect. He did not tell me to forgive them. He did not tell me family was family. He did not even ask what my father meant by loser, because by then he already knew. He had been standing beside me for years while they smiled to my face and chipped away at me one comment at a time. All he asked was, "What do you want to do now?" Not what do you think you should do? Not what will make this easier by Christmas. What do you want? I leaned against the counter and said the truth before I could talk myself out of it. I think I am done trying to earn love from people who only respect me when I make myself smaller. Michael nodded once and said, "Then stop shrinking." That was it. No speech, no drama. Just permission to tell the truth. I spent the rest of that afternoon doing something my family would never understand. I got quiet. I did not leave the group chat. I did not block anyone. I did not send a long emotional paragraph they could screenshot and mock later. I let the silence sit there and do its work. Let them wonder why I was not begging, not explaining, not trying to fix what they had broken. Then I opened my laptop and called Sophia Bennett, an old friend from college who now ran digital campaigns for small lifestyle brands. She had been telling me for 2 years that my company looked too modest online for how strong my work actually was. I told her I was ready, not for a refresh, for a relaunch. I wanted a real website, client testimonials, project videos, clean before and after reels, a booking flow that made me look like the business owner I already was. By the end of the call, she had a photographer lined up and a plan in motion. For the first time all day, I felt something other than hurt. I felt momentum. That night, after the kids were asleep, I made one more call. Ben Carter, my cousin on my mother's side, had cut himself off from most of the family years earlier after a business deal went sour and nobody defended him. He lived in Bend, Oregon now, and owned a few vacation rentals outside town. We had stayed in touch just enough to know the other was still out there. When he picked up, he did not ask why I was calling so late. He just said, "Brooke, you finally done?" I let out a laugh I did not mean to. He listened while I gave him the short version. Then he told me one of his long-term renters was moving out in a couple of months. 4 bedrooms, quiet street, good schools. "If you are serious," he said, "do not leave halfway. Leave for real." After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room and looked at the life Michael and I had built. The toys in the corner, the school artwork on the fridge, the business folders stacked on the table. Everything small and ordinary and hard-won. My family thought shutting me out of one birthday dinner would put me back in line. What they did not know was that I had already started building a life where their approval could not reach me. And before that week was over, even the birthday dinner they laughed about would start unraveling without me there to hold it together. Over the next month, I worked harder than I had in years, but for the first time, it did not feel like I was trying to prove anything to anyone. Sophia moved fast. She rebuilt my website from the ground up, cleaned up my branding, and made my company look the way it had always deserved to look. She had a photographer follow me through 2 staging jobs, captured the before and after transformations, and turned them into short videos that made my work feel polished and alive. We added client testimonials, online booking, and a portfolio that finally reflected the level I had been working at all along. Within 3 weeks, inquiries doubled. By the end of the month, I was booked out further than I had ever been. New clients were finding me through social media. Realtors I had never worked with before were reaching out. One woman told me she had picked me because my work felt warm, not cold and expensive. I thought about that line for the rest of the day. Warm, not cold and expensive. She had no idea how much that meant. While the business was taking off, I kept my personal life online exactly the same. I posted a picture of Mia at softball practice with dirt on her knees and that fierce little grin she gets when she thinks she has done something impressive. I posted Noah at swim lessons, clinging to the wall and laughing like he had no fear in the world. I posted a quick shot of Michael flipping pancakes on a Saturday morning while both kids argued over whose plate had more blueberries. Nothing dramatic, nothing fake, just a quiet, steady life. And that, more than anything, seemed to bother my family. Megan was the first to reach out. She sent me a private message one night that said, "Glad to see you are okay. Mom has been upset. And honestly, this has gone on long enough." There was no apology in it. No acknowledgement of what had been done. Just the usual tone, polished and superior, as if I were the difficult one dragging out a misunderstanding. I left it unread. 2 days later, my mother texted me directly. "No matter what happens, I am still your mother." I stared at it for a long time because that was exactly the problem. In our family, motherhood was treated like a permanent excuse. It did not matter how much damage was done. I was always supposed to come back because of the title alone. I did not reply to her either. Then the birthday dinner came and went. I did not hear about it right away. But word has a way of moving through a family even when no one says your name out loud. A week later, Hannah sent me a message asking if we could talk. She said the party had been strange, not awkward in a normal family way. Strange in a sharper, heavier way. People kept asking where I was. A couple of relatives had apparently assumed I was running late because they knew I had been helping with the dinner plans. At some point, someone mentioned the private room that had disappeared. Someone else asked who had arranged the custom menu my mother had been bragging about. That was when the truth started leaking into the room. I had paid for it. I had planned it. I had intended to give my mother the kind of birthday she could show off for years. And after my father threw me out, it was all gone. Hannah told me our mother tried to pretend none of that mattered, but her smile never settled right after that. My father got quieter as the night wore on. Megan snapped at staff over little things that normally would not have bothered her. Tyler made one of his stupid jokes and nobody laughed. The whole evening, according to Hannah, felt like everyone was circling the same question without saying it out loud. Why would they push out the one person who had actually shown up for them? I read Hannah's message twice and set my phone down. For years, I had been the easiest person in that family to blame because I was always the one still trying. The minute I stepped back, the whole illusion started wobbling. A few minutes later, another message came through from Hannah. "Can we meet in person?" Just us. I looked at the screen for a long time before answering. The strangest part was that I did not feel afraid anymore. I just felt ready. I met Hannah 3 days later at a quiet coffee shop near the lake, far enough from our usual side of town that there was almost no chance of running into anyone we knew. She was already there when I walked in, sitting by the window with her hands wrapped around a paper cup like she needed something warm just to hold herself together. She looked tired in a way makeup could not fix. Not sick, not dramatic, just worn down. When she saw me, she stood up halfway like she wanted to hug me, then seemed to think better of it and sat back down. I took the chair across from her and waited. I was done helping other people find the words to explain what they had done. For a few seconds, she just looked at me. Then she let out a breath and said, "You were right." I did not say anything. I just let the silence do what it had been doing for me ever since that morning in the coffee line. Hannah looked down at her drink and started talking. She said the dinner had felt wrong from the start. Mom kept smiling too hard and talking too fast. Dad acted like he was not bothered, but he checked his phone all night, like part of him really thought you were going to walk in and smooth everything over the way you always used to. Megan spent half the evening irritated because things kept slipping. The table was not right. The service was off. The staff did not know about the menu Mom had been expecting. Tyler made one of his dumb comments about family drama, and even Mom shut him down. Hannah said nobody was having a good time. They were performing a celebration, not living one. Then she looked at me and said the part I think she knew would land hardest. Dad should never have sent that text. Nobody voted on it. Nobody sat down and said, "We do not want Brooke there." He just decided that if you were not going to do what he wanted, then you should not be there at all. I felt something cold settle into place inside me. Not shock, not even anger. Just confirmation. The whole family does not want you there. That was the sentence he had used to make his cruelty feel official, to make it sound unanimous. Hannah kept going, maybe because once she started telling the truth, she did not know how to stop. She said a few relatives had asked questions at dinner once they realized I had been the one who arranged the private room and special menu. Apparently, one of my aunts had said, "I thought Brooke was handling all this." Then another person asked why I was not there if I had helped plan it. Hannah said Mom tried to brush it off, but people could tell something was wrong. The story did not hold together. Dad got irritated. Megan got defensive. And the more they tried to act like everything was normal, the more obvious it became that it was not. I asked Hannah why she had not said anything in the group chat when it happened. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and gave me the most honest answer she had probably ever given me in her life. Because I was scared of them. Scared of Dad. Scared of Megan turning on me. Scared of being next. Then she swallowed hard and added, "But I also thought you would come back like you always do." That hurt more than I expected because it was true. I had trained them all to believe I would keep returning, keep explaining, keep accepting whatever version of love they offered me just to avoid losing them completely. Hannah told me Mom had spent the days after the party crying and saying she did not understand why things had gone this far. Dad kept saying I was being dramatic. Megan said I was trying to make everyone feel guilty. Then Hannah said the one sentence that made the entire shape of my life snap into focus. "They only love you when you are useful and quiet." I leaned back in my chair and stared out the window for a moment because the truth of it was so clean, it almost made me dizzy. Useful and quiet. That was the role. The daughter who showed up. The daughter who helped. The daughter who made things beautiful, calmed people down, filled in gaps, took the hit, swallowed the insult, returned the call, brought the gift, arranged the dinner, made everyone else look better than they were. And the second I stopped doing that, I became disposable. Hannah started crying then, real tears this time, not the careful kind people use when they want credit for feeling bad. She told me she was sorry for every time she stayed silent, every time she sent me private comfort after public cowardice, every time she chose safety over honesty. I believed she meant it, but something in me had already crossed too far to go back, just because someone finally admitted what had been happening all along. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers for a second, not because I was ready to forgive everything, but because I needed her to understand one thing clearly. I said, "I was never the problem in that family." Hannah shook her head and said, "No, you were the one keeping it from falling apart." We sat there a little longer after that, but the conversation was already over in the only way that mattered. I had come in still carrying some last small piece of guilt, some leftover question about whether I was overreacting, whether I should try one more time, whether walking away would make me the villain they had always claimed I was. I left that coffee shop without any of it. By the time I got back to my car, I was not wondering whether I should save the relationship anymore. I was thinking about how fast I could get my children out of the reach of people who thought love was something you had to earn by disappearing inside it. That night, After dinner, Michael found me in the garage holding an empty cardboard box. He looked at me once and asked, "Are we doing this?" I nodded and said, "Yes. This time, we are leaving for real." Once I said it out loud, everything started moving faster. Not in a chaotic way, not in the kind of frantic panic my family would have expected from me, but with a calm that surprised even me. The next morning, while the kids were at school and Michael was at work, I sat at the dining room table with my laptop, a legal pad, and a cup of coffee that went cold before I touched it. I made a list: transfer business paperwork, finish current staging contracts, talk to the school about records, start sorting the house room by room, figure out what we were taking and what we were finally done carrying. Ben called that afternoon with photos of the rental in Bend. It was better than I expected. Clean white walls, tall windows, a quiet backyard, enough room for the kids to run without feeling boxed in, good light in the kitchen, a small detached space in the back that could work as an office or a design studio once I got settled. I stared at those pictures longer than I meant to. It did not look like an escape. It looked like a life. Michael came home that evening, and we sat on the floor after the kids went to bed, talking through logistics instead of feelings, which somehow felt more intimate than any dramatic conversation could have. He would finish the school year remotely if they approved it. If not, he would resign and find something new after the move. I would wrap the projects I could finish, refer the rest out, and relaunch my business in Oregon under the same name. Every decision felt heavy, but not wrong. That was the difference. A week later, I posted a simple photo on Instagram. Just 3 moving boxes stacked by the wall in my office with the caption, "New chapter loading." No location, no explanation, nothing emotional. Within an hour, Hannah texted me asking if I was moving. I did not answer. Then Megan called. I let it ring. My mother sent a message that night saying she had heard a rumor and wanted to know what was going on. I left that unanswered too. The next morning, my father finally texted me directly. "You are taking this too far." That was all he wrote. No apology, no question about his grandchildren, no sign that he had spent even 1 second thinking about what he had done. Just the same old posture, like he still believed he was in charge of where this story ended. I looked at the screen and felt nothing. A month earlier, that text would have sent me into a spiral. Now, it only confirmed that leaving was the right thing. Over the next few weeks, the house slowly changed shape around us. Closets got emptied, shelves cleared off, old toys were boxed or donated. I sold furniture we did not want to drag across the country and gave away half the decorative things I had once bought, trying to make that house feel more complete than it ever really had. Mia and Noah thought the whole thing was an adventure. We let them draw on the boxes with markers, little hearts and stars, and crooked names in bright colors. Michael wrote "Bend or Bust" on one of them and made the kids laugh so hard they nearly fell over. There were moments, usually late at night, when I would stand in a doorway and feel the ache of what I was doing. Not because I wanted to stay, but because I could see so clearly how long I had stayed in places that hurt me just because I thought endurance was the same thing as love. My family kept circling as the move got closer. Megan sent a long message about how I was tearing everyone apart over one misunderstanding. My mother wrote an email full of memory and guilt, talking about holidays and old family photos and how mothers make mistakes too. Hannah tried calling twice, and when I finally listened to her voicemail, all she said was that she understood if I needed distance, but she hoped I would tell her before I left. I almost called her back. I almost let myself soften. Then my father sent another message. "You are acting like a child." I read it once and laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. After everything he had done, after all the years he had spent talking down to me, controlling the room, deciding who mattered and who did not, that was what he had. That was the best he could come up with when he realized I was really leaving. A week before the move, I opened the family group chat for the first time in days. The conversation had drifted back to normal on the surface. Someone had posted a baby picture. Someone else was talking about a summer barbecue. There was no mention of me at all. It was the kind of silence families create when they want to erase the person who stopped playing the role they were assigned. I scrolled through it for a minute, then tapped one button and left the chat without saying a word. My phone started going off almost immediately. Hannah first, then Megan, then my mother. I turned it face down on the table and kept packing. The last night in the house, Michael and I sat on the floor of our bedroom because the bed had already been taken apart. The kids were asleep on air mattresses, exhausted and happy. He asked me one final time if I was sure. I looked around the room, at the blank walls and bare corners, and realized I felt lighter than I had in years. I am not leaving because I am angry, I told him. I am leaving because I finally understand what staying costs. We pulled out the next morning before sunrise. Michael drove the SUV with the kids, and I followed behind in the rental truck. Just before I got in, I took one last photo of the empty living room with the early light falling across the floor and posted it with a single line. Sometimes leaving is the only way to grow. Then I locked the front door, dropped the keys through the mail slot, and drove away without looking back. 6 months in Bend changed more than my address. It changed the way I woke up in the morning. Back in Texas, I used to open my eyes with a weight already sitting on my chest, like I was late to fix a problem that had started before I even got out of bed. In Oregon, the air felt different. The house was quieter. The light through the kitchen windows felt softer. Mia made friends faster than I expected. Noah started sleeping through the night without wandering into our room. Michael found a remote teaching position that paid less than his old one but gave him something my family never understood the value of: peace. As for me, I rebuilt my business one room at a time. Ben introduced me to a few local agents. Sophia helped me keep the momentum going online. And within a few months, I was staging vacation properties and family homes that needed warmth instead of showmanship. It was smaller than what my father would have called success, but it was honest, steady, and fully mine. The strangest part was realizing how much space opened up in my life once I stopped managing people who were committed to misunderstanding me. No more tense holidays, no more careful wording, no more waiting for the next insult disguised as advice. I did hear things, of course. Families like mine do not let go quietly. Through mutual relatives and the occasional message that slipped through from an unblocked email, I learned that my father had been telling people I overreacted, that I had taken a joke too seriously, that I was going through something emotional. My mother had gone with a softer version. She told people she did not understand what had happened to me, as if cruelty had entered my body one morning like a fever and made me forget who I was. But stories like that only work when the person they are about stays nearby long enough to keep defending themselves. I was gone. I was busy. I was happy. And little by little, their versions stopped holding together. The more they talked, the more people started remembering things. How I was always the one who helped set up family events. How I showed up when somebody needed a ride, a favor, a last-minute fix, a gift, a calm voice, an extra pair of hands. How often I gave without keeping score. A couple of cousins reached out quietly to apologize, not in a way that asked for instant forgiveness, but in a way that told me they had finally seen the pattern for what it was. Megan never apologized. That would have required humility, and humility was never her talent. Hannah did, more than once. I believed her each time, but belief and access are not the same thing. She could be sorry and still not be safe. Then, one gray Saturday in late fall, I saw my parents in person for the first time since we left. I was at a grocery store with Noah, standing in the cereal aisle while he argued passionately for something covered in cartoon marshmallows, when I heard my name behind me. Not Brooke in the warm way friends say it. Brooke in the old way, like a hand reaching for the back of my neck. I turned, and there they were. My mother looked older, not dramatically, just smaller somehow. My father was standing beside her with a cane, his jaw tighter than I remembered, his body carrying the outline of someone who had spent a lifetime expecting rooms to bend around him and was only now learning they would not. For one strange second, it felt like my old life had caught up to me in the produce section. My mother took a step forward and said my name again, softer this time. Noah looked up at me and asked who they were. I rested a hand on his shoulder and said, "They are people from my old life, sweetheart. Stay with me." My mother flinched like I had slapped her, but I had not raised my voice. I had only told the truth. She started talking quickly after that, saying they had been trying to reach me, that they were in town for a few days, that maybe this was a sign we were meant to talk. My father said nothing at first, which was almost more unsettling than if he had snapped. He just stood there, waiting for me to give him an opening, the way I always used to. But I was not that woman anymore. I looked at both of them and said the thing I had needed years to understand. I do not hate you. I do not need revenge. But my children will not grow up believing love means humiliation, control, and silence. I will not teach them to beg for scraps from people who only wanted me when I was useful. My mother started crying before I finished. My father finally spoke then, and even in that moment he could not fully let go of himself. He said we were family, as if that word alone should unlock every door he had spent years slamming in my face. I nodded and said, "Yes," and that is exactly why this mattered so much. Then I took Noah's hand and walked away. Neither of them followed me. That was the moment that stayed with me afterward. Not the tears, not the cane, not even the silence. It was the fact that for the first time in my life, I did not leave a conversation with them feeling small. I left feeling clear. Later that night, sitting on the back porch while the kids played inside and Michael read beside me, I thought about how badly I used to want my family to become different people, kinder people, fairer people, people who could love without keeping score. But the truth is, waiting for people to change can become another way of abandoning yourself. Sometimes the lesson is not that they will finally see your worth. Sometimes the lesson is that you have to stop handing your worth to people who profit from doubting it. I did not leave to punish them. I left because I finally understood that protecting my peace was not cruel, and protecting my children from the same cycle was not selfish. Some families teach you how to belong. Others teach you what love should never cost. My father thought shutting me out of one birthday dinner would put me back in my place. What he really did was show me there was no place for me there that did not require me to disappear. So I built a new one. And the happiest part is this. I did not build it out of revenge. I built it out of truth.
At Revenge Nickel, our team is committed to creating meaningful and engaging fictional stories that entertain while offering valuable life lessons. Every story on this channel is created for educational and inspirational purposes, with the hope of sharing thoughtful messages and relatable experiences with our viewers. This story reminds viewers that self-respect, healthy boundaries, and emotional strength are essential in any relationship. It teaches that love should never require humiliation, silence, or the loss of one's identity. Through this journey, the audience can reflect on the importance of choosing peace, dignity, and personal growth.